I want to look at with you now is something that, once again, I don't really like. Specifically, it's the liquidation map, because we already talked last week about how the Bitcoin price would sell off again, dropping so far down. And let's ignore that long wick for now and just focus on the regular downward movement. I wouldn't have thought so, but if you can still remember, it was like this, and you can see it too. That here, a lot of money was lying down here. And I said, okay, there would be a lot to collect down here in liquidations. And that's exactly what the price actually did quite strongly. The only problem is if I now look at the month itself, well, you have to say this can always change again. So a map like this is constantly changing. But here you can see what the market makers are actually doing. There was a lot of liquidity here. That's what I had told you as well. And with this move down, they completely scooped it up. They bought all of this up here. I think that's about 1.6 million traders who were leveraged and got liquidated. 1.6 million traders gone. All the money completely gone. That's what they did here. And not just with Bitcoin, but of course with all the other coins as well. Yeah, and you can see that the market is already building up new liquidity again. That means the market makers can now look here and say, okay, we could go back up to 113,000. Or maybe even up to this big bar here at 118,000, because there's a lot of liquidity here again. But even up here in the upper range at 126,000 US dollars, we have another nice bar that could be taken. And the whole thing goes up to 130,000 US dollars. That's the long-term perspective, where I can definitely imagine that the market makers will want to scoop things up at the top. On the other hand, now let me take a look, because I think this has actually changed. I just pulled up the yearly view here. So it's like this. Don't let this scare you, but these are all the orders combined over the past year. This isn't really representative, since it can always change again. You already saw that back here as well. The shadow goes down and immediately new lines start forming again. But what I'm getting at, because a lot of people say the bull run is only just getting started. So people say we'll see another crash and then everything will explode. That's not going to happen with Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not going to bet my life on it because that would be silly, but I'm pretty sure there won't be an explosion because almost everything above has already been picked clean. And the last orders that you can still make out a bit here are at 130,000, 131,000 US dollars. And what can still be scooped up down here, what we're seeing here, goes down to about 64, 65,000 US dollars, and there's quite a bit there. So that means I can imagine that they'll pick up the top one more time and then the bear market will start. I can imagine that maybe the altcoins, once Bitcoin is exhausted, might rise a little further. But even there, I would wish it for everyone, I would wish it for you, I would wish it for myself, but I do not think we will see such explosive increases as we did in 2021. What I can imagine is that there will be another rally, like the short-term one we just had, or like we saw at the end of last year, that there will be another rally, and that with many coins you'll get out with just a black eye, and with other coins you might still achieve a good return. You might be able to generate some profits, but I don't think everything is going to explode at this point in time. A lot would really have to happen for things to truly change, and you just have to keep moving forward step by step and really keep an eye on that. The market always goes where the money is, and the money is down here, not up there. And just as little as we have up there, that's exactly what I suspect as well. We might go up a little bit more, just a small uptick. And then it goes down from here. Most of these positions, or this strong sell-off, was mainly caused by liquidations. I don't know how long you've been in the market or how familiar you are with it, but I'll try to explain it simply. So we're basically in the futures market now. And you leverage a position, and let's say you have 1,000 US dollars or whatever currency, you just have 1,000 euros. That's what's available to you. But you want to place a trade because you're pretty sure about it and you'd like to invest $10,000. But of course, you only have 1,000 US dollars. That means you could say, okay, you do leverage trading with a 10 times leverage. You've probably heard of something like that before. So that means you put in your own 1,000 euros, $1,000, whatever it is, and you borrow another 9,000 US dollars from the crypto exchange so that you reach $10,000. And with these $10,000, you then buy your crypto. But in reality, you've only put in $1,000 and the rest is just borrowed to some extent. This means with a 10 times leverage, if you've invested 10,000 US dollars and the price of Bitcoin drops by 1%, it means that your own capital, the $1,000 you invested, decreases by $100. So you have 10,000 US dollars, 1% of that is 100, which means your equity drops from 1,000 to 900 US dollars with a 1% loss in value. With a 5% loss in value, it means that your own deposited capital is only worth 500 US dollars if you were to sell it again. And if the price drops by 10% with a 10 times leverage, that means your entire deposited capital is gone. And that in turn means, okay, the crypto exchange closes this position, sells your Bitcoin so that it doesn't make a loss. Yes, because it uses your money as collateral for that. And if a lot of people do this who are trading and this trade gets closed because the bank basically wants to get its collateral back, then it can happen that you bought in, the position is closed, it's sold, and this sale creates downward pressure. That in turn means that the next person might get liquidated. And then they also have to close their position. That means the price keeps dropping, and then you can get a cascade effect where more and more positions have to be forcibly closed. On top of that, people enter the market who start selling in a panic. And in no time at all, you have a situation where the market really crashes downward. And anyone can say what they want, but I think we can all agree that this was done deliberately. So in other words, this was no accident. I also don't necessarily believe that Trump was behind it. You can think what you want about that. But often it's the case that these market makers look for a reason that can be cited afterwards to explain why prices dropped. But the fact that it dropped so massively and positions were even taken just before Trump sent out that tweet, it's simply manipulated. And I personally know people who lost an incredible amount of money because of it. That's why you always have to keep in mind when you're trading with leverage, especially in the crypto space, which is very risky as we've seen, that if you do leverage trading, you should only ever use small amounts of money. Personally, I have to say I was lucky, because at that moment I was trading with short positions. So luckily I didn't lose any money there because all the trades I had open were in the short direction. Alright, now let's move into the long-term area. And here I also want to briefly, let's just do it right here. So the bull run, as I said, is not just starting now. The beginning was in November 2022. That means the bull run has been going on for almost 3 years now. And at some point it will come to an end. The question that arises now is, basically, since this wave 4 that we had here, we assume that we need another 5-part movement upwards to complete the cycle. So as of now, we have a wave 1, a wave 2. That one was very small, it's almost unnoticeable on the chart. Then came a wave 3, which was formed in an ABC pattern, so an ABC into wave 3. And now comes the crucial question. Either we have an A, B, C here into wave 4, then everything would be fine. That's possible. That would be an overshooting wave 4, and we would now move into wave 5. So one last rise before the bull run is really over. That would be the classic scenario, I imagine, and I still believe that this could happen because we haven't broken any support here. So we actually have room down to the 0.05 Fibonacci level, so down to 101,475. Let's round it up to 101,500 US dollars. Bitcoin can correct to that level without anything being invalidated. That's all within the range where you would say, yes, that's where wave 4 typically goes. Then, of course, sometimes the price falls a bit lower. That's outside the norm, but still technically possible that the price drops down to the 0.6 Fibonacci level. That would put us at a price of about $96,800. And if the price falls down there, then we would have to reconsider whether we're still in a bull run or if that's actually already the bear market that has begun. So these are important price levels. Please remember them. Up to $101,500, everything is in the green zone. Down to $96,800, yes, it gets a bit more critical because then it's kind of a maybe situation, and below that the probability is extremely high that it's basically already the bear market. Yes. So, and as we've seen with the liquidations, we still have some room to the downside. But also up here in the area where we had the all-time high, there's still room for us to move up. So I can quickly show that again. The liquidation map, as you can see here, we've pretty much cleared out everything to the downside that could be cleared out. Unless you switch to the yearly view, but that's really looking at an entire year and not what's currently happening. 3 months is already quite a long time, but still it seems that pretty much everything to the downside has been fished out, and to the upside, as I said, we still have positions like at $130,000 where there's still something to be gained. And back here, new positions have built up again, which makes me think that the price will move up once more. What could also be the case, this is now scenario B, would be that we've actually already seen the bull run top here and that we're moving downward in a larger ABC formation, which I've marked here in yellow. So that means we're moving down here in an ABC towards the larger wave A. That's possible, yes. After that, there would be a correction to the upside, which would definitely have to be in 3 parts. And after that, the next pullback into wave C would follow. And that would basically already be the first part of the bear market, before there's another interim recovery where you might even set a new all-time high, and then the crash really comes all the way down. So that's the main scenario as I see it. But primarily, I assume that the price will turn again and will move up here into wave 5. Snoopy Doo writes, forget about the altcoins, it doesn't make sense unless you also enjoy shorting them, because that always makes more sense. I'm still not sure if it's really time to short, at least not predominantly. Of course, there are prices that are in a constant sell-off. So let's take GLQ as an example. I also analyze it for my clients. You can also check it out on Patreon if you like. That's where I make my analyses available. Since March 2024, it has only had consistently declining momentum. And if you shorted it, which I did, at least in part, because it was clear to me that it would drop down here, I was able to capture quite a bit of that move. That was quite a tasty deal I made there. But of course, it's clear you can short something like that. But there are also prices like, for example, the XRP price. Let's ignore the wick here for now, I'll come back to that later. Well, there really wasn't much to short there. So that's why I think you really have to look at each individual price chart and see whether it's really being completely sold off or whether at the end of the day it still has some upward momentum. And here with XRP, as I said, you have to ignore the wick. I still don't really know how to deal with wicks myself, especially with altcoins. The point is, since I was already assuming these liquidations just now, on every exchange, especially with altcoins, this wick appears in a different place. So it really seems as if, for example, what we saw on Binance, okay, the last bigger order is somewhere at 78 cents. And that's exactly how far they let the price drop. And then it shot right back up. So that was a move that was over in 20 minutes. Down once, then back up. Where the truth actually lies now, what isn't an artificial effect caused by this manipulation, I don't know. That's why I'm currently having a hard time deciding where to apply the Fibonacci tools. So I have to figure that out myself. And I'm honest enough to say there are YouTubers out there who just throw things out there saying this is how it works and they're sure about it, etc. And I say, okay, with this wick, I honestly don't really know what to make of it right now. That's why at the moment, even on the shorter time frame, I have few price targets, because where should I set them? Should I set it down there? So I just put it here for the sake of formality, that this could be a wave 4, because up to $96, everything would still be in the green zone. But if on another exchange the price only dropped to here and then went back up, everything is still in the green zone. So that's why I don't know. XRP, like all the other prices, is still dropping a bit. Maybe this correction where we're going down again now will give us a bit more clarity on how far this will go so that we can set new targets again. Unfortunately, that's a bit more difficult at the moment. In the very short term with Bitcoin, we really have to carefully look at it because, you know, it's like this. This is basically the theoretical bull run top here. And here we would have an overshooting wave B and would already be heading downward. Exactly, so my preferred trend reversal area is here. A bit narrowed down between, well, roughly at 100,000 to 103,000 US dollars. Of course, it can go further down because that's what the higher level count is for. This just narrows things down a bit here, and the price target would be around 100,000 US dollars. That would also fit quite well again with the liquidations that are still open there. Exactly, so that's the roadmap for Bitcoin. For me, that would still be something of an outsider scenario because, as I said, that's the overall market signal. Let's leave crises aside for now, like the reduction of key interest rates. By the way, I should also mention that not every interest rate cut has automatically led to rising prices. In the past, it has often resulted in a dip downward at first. So what I could also imagine, but that really only has outsider chances. For that, I'll switch to the weekly chart now, which would be one possibility. So here it starts. That was our low. Here's the bull run. Regardless of whether we go up a bit further now or whether the bull run is actually over for the time being, we assumed that this was the bull run top and then we actually crashed back down to the basement. But it could also be possible that here with Bitcoin, we have successfully completed a significant wave 1, and now, although we would also anticipate a strong and inevitable correction, which will undoubtedly happen sooner or later anyway, I think I've made that abundantly clear to everyone. It is expected that we would now transition into a distinct wave 2 here in the market. Wait, a wave 2 at the current top, the price targets would be around $34,000, so between $44,000 and $34,000, and then there would be a wave 3. And maybe, if you're lucky, this could now be a relatively quick sell-off and you could take off again with wave 3. So that's one possibility that could definitely happen, but it's purely speculative and absolutely not my preferred scenario. And even if that were the case and Bitcoin drops down to $35,000 again, just think about what that would do to the altcoins. They would just get completely crushed. I actually believe that in the next bear market, we're going to see a massive die-off of altcoins. That a whole lot of them will really get crushed and there will be significant capital losses with many coins simply disappearing for good. Even now, there are already some that have been delisted that have simply had their time. If you enjoyed the content of this video, I'd appreciate it if you supported my work with a thumbs up and a comment. For example, let me know in the comments how you assess the current situation. And if you like, you can also check out the summary with the bull run indicators, or even watch the complete summary of the live stream. My live streams currently take place every week on Friday at 7 p.m. Maybe I'll see you there. See you soon. Ciao.